Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 445. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I'm the master of a whole different kind of thesaurus. So says the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Actually, I should say the elder statesman of the podcast as well. You're all of those things rolled up in one.
I'm a man of 1,000 nicknames.
You really are. Yeah, it's funny. The last episode, I think I called you the Clubber Lang. I should have referred to you as the Apollo Creed.
Yes.
I caught it afterwards when I was listening back, and I'm like, should I take that out? I'm like, no, that'll be really dumb. Just let it go. But float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, Mr. Segulin. On this episode, we're talking about some favorite books. We're actually going to jump to Starfire and Teen Titans. We're also going to, seeing with the following the team theme, we're going to go to Gotham Academy. We're also going to talk about We Are Robin. And lastly, we're going to finish off with a talk about the most recent issue of Detective Comics. So it's action-packed. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Jim, we are sponsored by DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com proudly. What is going on at DCBService.com?
Well, of course, there's always the great bundles that I love, and I keep bringing them up, returning bundles, new bundles, some great Vertigo bundles, but I'm actually going to talk about something else.
Okay.
Dark Knight 3 Master Race issue number 1.
Nice.
DCBS price, 50% off. Yes, 50% off, only $2.99, but there's more. They also have an oversized collector's edition hardcover with also that same 50% discount, only $6.49. Some great Dark Knight stories, but wait, there's more. Batman Europa, new limited series 4-issue story coming out from Batman with its writer is, Brian Azzarello, Matteo Castello, with artist Giuseppe oh boy, I'm going to mispronounce the name, but also Jim Lee on the cover, with Jim Lee cover art, some great Batman stories. DCBS price, once again, yes, that is correct, 50% off, DCBS price, $2.49.
What is that discount, Jim?
50% off. Thank you, DCBS. You are awesome.
We love DCBS, and actually remember that they are a digital partner. Link your digital accounts over at DCBService.com. Make sure to shop through their online portal, because then you get 5% of those purchases back as credit. Over at InStockTrades.com, they do their deals of the week, and one of the books that I love, Swamp Thing by Scott Snyder, deluxe edition hardcover. I adored this series. This is one that didn't wind up surviving the DCU, and I so wish it did, because I loved this book. If you didn't read this deluxe edition hardcover is the way to do it, and it's 50% off, only $24.99. It collects 0 to 18, Annual number 1, Animal Man number 12 and 17. So it's quite a bit of content. 512 pages in this deluxe edition hardcover. It's writing by Scott Snyder, Jeff Lemire, and it's a wonderful book. I can't recommend it highly enough, and that 50% off price is kind of a no-brainer. Speaking of Teen Titans, we talk about Teen Titans on this episode. New Teen Titans Trade Paperback Volume 3. This collects the Marv Wolfman and George Perez series, issues 17 to 20, Tales of the New Teen Titans 1 through 4. And this is 224 pages, great material, only $10.99. It's 45% off, and that's the New Teen Titans Trade Paperback Volume 3. I want to thank InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
One of the things I wanted to start off talking about in this episode was the news this week about the canceled. It tells you how flustered I am by them now. They're not canceled titles; they're answered titles.
Oh no! I'm worried.
This is my disbelief. There's 8 comics that have been canceled by DC. Now, 2 of them are the digital first titles: Batman 66, which I'm loving, and Sensation Comics. I'm actually loving both of those. But I grew up with Batman 66. They've given that one a lengthy run, and Sensation Comics, which has been another one of my favorites. But now we're going to get into the regular monthlies. One of them that was just announced was Green Lantern Lost Army. That's going to end with issue 6.
What?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Hopefully this is storyline-wise, and we're going to get another Green Lantern title. Because the characters are going to get not lost anymore.
Yeah, DC's saying that it was supposed to be a miniseries all along, but I didn't read anything about that being a miniseries, so that stinks. That book's going to be canceled, and they have it charted. Cullen Bunn, the writer, said that the story's all charted all the way through, the plan and how it's all going to play out. So hopefully that we will get to see that. But here's some of the other ones that are Justice League United, Gotham by Midnight, the Omega Men, Lobo, and Doomed. Are all reaching their final issues, by the end of the year. And let me just give you the issue numbers just so people know. It's issue 16 for Justice League United, Gotham by Midnight issue 12, Omega Men by issue 7, and Lobo by issue 13. I'm with you, and it's one of the things, like, you were asking, should I read up on this before we talk about it? And I'm like, no, let's just kind of go into it, because I think your natural reaction is probably the best way to go with this. These are favorite titles of mine. I mean, I'm really loving these titles. Some of them are ones that, like, having more Green Lantern books are always good, but other ones, I kind of fleshed out the universe for me. Omega Men, we were just talking about it last episode, and I love Omega Men. That's a book that I'm loving. Actually, on our Facebook group, and one of our listeners, and I apologize for forgetting the name right now, posted that he started writing a letter to DC and urged other people to do it. And the link is in our Facebook group, and I do encourage people to write DC and let them know for any of these titles if they're some of your favorites. Lobo is another one. Like, I've never been a big Lobo fan. I haven't read a lot of Lobo, so as I've mentioned previously, don't take that as an insult if you're a huge Lobo fan. But for me, this Lobo run has been one where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get the Lobo concept and getting why people have liked it for so long. So now you got me, and this book's going away. So, and I'm not happy with, and honestly, I'm not shortchanging Justice League United, Gotham by Midnight, or the Green Lantern book. Doomed is another one that's been a fun read. These are all titles that I'm digging.
Yeah, like with Green Lantern Lost, I'm hoping it's because, as I said, storyline driven. Maybe they'll be unlost. They'll be found. And we'll continue on with the Green Lantern core concept and whatnot, because for me, it's not just about one Green Lantern. I do like the concept of the core. I like multiple lanterns. I think that's part of the interesting of that concept. But as you said with Lobo, really, digging Lobo, Omega Men, I'm like, they're just building their story and it's ending. Gotham by Midnight, another one that, it had that different taste to it. It had that different little groove and, jive to it that I liked that. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, this, because, grr.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, because I like the diversity of titles. I like having a lineup, because I'm reading so many books. I like when books that are different are out there. I wish they'd give them more of a run. I do applaud them for this DCU with trying new titles. I think that's something that's been a strength of this particular line and this particular concept. But man, some of these are some favorites that have, I don't know, I think like an Omega Man, I don't think 7 issues is enough time for it to develop an audience. I think it's a book that over time, it gets critical acclaim. People seem to really like, and I just think it's a book that needed some more time to kind of germinate and let fans, get a taste of it. I do nowadays, I get frustrated because I think it's hard for newer concepts to get some legs to them, to get the word out, to reach a new audience, because a lot of these titles, when you look at them in concept, are really and should be targeted towards reaching out to a new audience. And I'm just not seeing how comics are reaching out to them or what is the right method for them to do it. I almost would love to see them take some form of multimedia approach to how they release them. For a while they experimented with motion comics and things like that, if you know what I'm talking about. Where it was the actual comic, but there was like a voice actor behind it, and actresses, and they kind of fleshed it out a little bit. I'd almost love to see that as a way to introduce people to these series as they kick off. Maybe publish some of those free. And I know we're asking for a lot of money commitment when you do that, but I think if you're going to give a series a good run, or you can put that at 99 cents or something like that to put them out there, or bundle them or something like that with another famous DC book. So you can get the motion comic to try it out as a promo to get to know some of the characters. anything to do a little bit more promotion for these to a new audience, not us. I just hate seeing some of these books canceled because it's frustrating, and I don't really have all the answers, and I'm not pretending I do. I don't know what comics can do now to reach out to a new crowd. We see more and more comic television shows coming out. We see comics blending into great video games. We see comics as a source for amazing movies that are out there. Overall, this geek culture right now is where the go-to is. So I'd love to see more of these new concepts take off. I do think, I get hope when I see movies like Guardians of the Galaxy being a mega hit, because, it's a chance for some of our lesser-known comics concepts to break through to the mainstream. I wish there was ways to reach a larger audience with some of these newer titles, or to give them a different sort of chance. I do give DC credit for doing things like they tried the backstories for a while in some of their books, the second stories, whatever you want to call them. I really enjoyed when they were doing that as a way to introduce some concepts that maybe couldn't survive as their own book, so let's put them there. I'm glad that they gave these books a chance because they matter to me. So, this is one where every canceled title, I was like, wait, I'm liking all of these. I really, I really am. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate on this show to say, you know what, out of the 8, there's 7 of them, or 6 of them that I'm really sad about. No, I like all of them, because the digital first stuff, I think I'm doing that more than you are.
Oh, yeah.
But I really enjoy getting those. I like that they're a smaller delivery. It's more, it's strange to say it's episodic, but I like the weekly episodes of those. That, for me, is what I like about it. It's a different sort of delivery method for those. So to see any of those canceled, and the Batman 66 really tugs at my heartstrings in particular. I'm not diminishing Sensation Comics by that. I love more Wonder Woman. But for the Batman 66, with the TV series being released now on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital, I'm enjoying watching that, and I'm seeing it through the lens that it was originally intended, because I'm an adult now. I'm enjoying it on that end. So I've been liking the comic as a new companion, new stories set in that world. So I'm sad to see that being canceled. I hope they do something more with that in the future.
Yeah, see, I would think that with the digital first comics, that if they stopped, publishing the physical and just kept it digital, it would save them money, and it would be more of a, more economic for them. Because if they're not, because most of the cost is in the physical, the publishment of the actual paper comic. So if they avoided that, I don't see why they couldn't continue on the 66 in digital format.
I love when you invent new words.
What?
Publishment.
Yeah.
I do. I love when you invent new words. It's almost like a disease. Got some publishment all over me today, and I haven't been feeling well ever since. It is one of those. You're right about some. I don't know, and if any of our listeners know and can share it, I would love somebody to call in and tell us some information as far as how digital sales work in relation to the print comics. Are some of the books doing better digitally than they are in print? Because I would love to know that, because you're bringing up an interesting point. Is that happening with these digital first titles? Are some of them doing better in digital? I would imagine, though, if they were, I can't imagine somebody going, wow, this book is selling gangbusters in digital, so let's just cancel it altogether. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So I wonder if maybe, with some of these titles, they started off strong, and they hit a certain point where it's like, okay, I would imagine with like all the hubbub around the final release of Batman 66, that book was doing really well, and maybe it just hit a point where, okay, we've kind of reached an ending point with this. The sales aren't as strong as they were. Because I can't imagine them saying, hey, this is doing really well in digital and getting rid of it. But I might be wrong. I don't know. I would love to know sales number-wise what that looks like, and would love to know some of the decisions behind canceling books that they do. I don't follow numbers that much, except, unfortunately, when books are canceled. It's one of the reasons why on the show I think it's important that we talk about the product that we're enjoying. Like, I'm glad we did an episode on Omega Men. I'm glad we did it before we knew about the cancellation, because it was genuine. I'm loving this book. I really just want to talk about it. And, we've done a couple conversations about that title, and I'm glad we supported it that way. And I do hope our listeners, anybody out there who's really enjoying Omega Men, please contact DC and let them know that you're loving this book and you'd like to see them give it, an extension. Let's see some more Omega Men. I really love the title, and I want to read more of it. Jim, speaking of books that we want to talk about on this episode, last episode we talked about, we wanted to talk about Starfire and want to talk about Teen Titans. So can we start with Starfire issue number 4?
Oh, God, yeah.
So Starfire issue number 4 is Cheetah Smash. Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, writers. Emanuela Lupacchino on pencils. Mirko Pierfedericici, pencil assists. Ray McCarthy and Trevor Scott on inks. Hi-Fi colors. Tom Napolitano letters. Amanda Conner and Paul Mounts on the cover. Lee Garbett, Green Lantern 75th Anniversary variant cover. Paul Kaminsky, I should say, is the editor. Eddie Berganza is the group editor. Starfire created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. And apologies for any name butchery. I love that I was spelling out certain names and I'd already butchered other ones. And I apologize for that. This is a fun book. And you know what the funny part is? When it started off, I felt like this was going to be exclusively like kind of a fun, lighter read. What I love about it is as it's gone on, the depth has increased. It's still fun, but in the fun factor, we're seeing a book that really explores what it's like for an alien to come to Earth and be a fish out of water, so to speak. Yet, we see the heroism of Starfire in all of this. This is the same girl. I was a big fan, and as you were too, with Red Hood and the Outlaws. And I like that it all isn't all of a sudden like Corey's a very different character from that. This feels like the same girl, but we're seeing some character growth and development of her from that. I do like the focus on her as a character. The fun factor of this book has not diminished it any for me, but that's my thought. Where are you at on this title? Like, where does it fall under? Was it what you hoped for in a Starfire title, or were you hoping it would go in another direction?
Oh no, I'm digging this title, and it was funny because when this first the concept came out, with Amanda Conner as writing, her and Jimmy Palmiotti doing the writing. She's always the person I've always thought of her artwork, and I've always thought artwork first, and just because I love her art style. So, but when she was doing the writing, I'm like, what am I going to get? And because you mentioned that humor, and you get that humor, you get the hero moments. The Gray and Palmiotti stories that we absolutely love. I still get that kind of same vibe that I got in those, but it is different. Because it's only, it's Palmiotti with Connor, not Gray and Palmiotti team, but you still get that same type of dynamic, in the writing style that you're seeing some, little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, yeah. And they're meshing together to give us something really neat. And it's, one of the things we like about Secret Six is the usage of humor, but it doesn't take away from any of the hard-hitting action, just that you get that gore factor, you got that energy factor of Six, but then you got that little light humor moments. Starfire has that same type of light humor moments, but it doesn't take it away from the book. It doesn't make it a goofy comic. It makes it a fun comic. It makes it a comic about a hero trying to figure out her role in this world and her dealings with new people, her dealings with meeting up with new heroes, first team-ups, monsters, villains, oh my. But it still has that level of a little bit of humor, a little bit of chuckle, and especially in a lot of art moments that I was worried we were going to lose by not having Amanda Conner on the artwork. Mm-hmm. And we still get those funny moments like this opening bit, that it cracks me up with the cheetah smash. You see Starfire flying in, but she's got the little dog in her hand, and she had to rescue the dog right in the middle of the firefight. And I like just how just little bits like that. You start looking at some of the background artwork, you see some people's reactions, you see some funny moments. It's a really cool blend of the actual verbal humor, but also a physical humor as well. Yeah,
and you were mentioning before. You know what it is? It's a fun book with depth, and that's really important. A lot of times when you think of fun, I think perception is that it translates to the book doesn't have the same kind of depth as your more, more serious titles, if I'm making any sense at all. This, what I love about it is there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of depth. I love the sheriff and her brother. I love the townspeople. I love Atlee. I like that it's set in Key West and that we're having her deal with natural storms that happen. And the town facing disasters, not just from nature in general, but also from monsters and things like that coming in, and seeing how an area like Key West would handle it. I like the setting because it does. When I read Starfire, it's like being on a vacation, and I'm actually really enjoying that part of the book. It's brighter. There's some hope to it, yet it does tackle some interesting issues in the book, particularly with an alien trying to learn how to live a normal life, which isn't so easy, especially with her, she's an orange skin character trying to fit in a place. And I like that the orange skin doesn't always throw people off when you're in Key West because of tanning products and different things like that, that people don't naturally assume, is this a supermodel convention? Those type of things come in, and people are trying one-liners on her, but they're totally lost on her because she doesn't understand completely our culture. She does understand elements of it for her time here, but we're seeing a Starfire who really is learning about human customs. Her comfort level with even like the whole shower bit with the brother, I thought was really great because she didn't look at it as doing anything wrong. It was all very natural to her. And as far as, the modesty issue, in her case, she really wasn't trying to, turn him on or do anything like that. She was really just trying to take a shower and was suggesting certain things about conserving water matter-of-factly, not because she was trying to turn it into something it wasn't. But yet she is very open with that side of herself, because later on there's that guy with her boyfriend, and the guy with his girlfriend were there, and she doesn't realize that, like, okay, I kissed him, and I know that you guys are monogamous here, so I'm not trying to offend. I wasn't trying to ruin your relationship or anything like that. She says all that matter-of-factly like it would be okay, and the girlfriend's all ticked off, and I totally get it. And it's very natural moments. None of these things are things that she's doing because she's stupid. They're things that she's doing because she doesn't get the culture. This would be like me going to a foreign country right now where I don't speak the language and I don't know all of their customs. I would be very awkward because I would not want to offend people. I would want to enjoy my experience of being there. But I know there's things culturally in a lot of countries. Like I want to go and do like Europe and Asia and get to know all of those countries. And some of those countries have similar sensibilities to us. But more often than not, the cultures overseas from us are going to have very different customs to ones that I'm used to here. And that's part of the fun of going. It's learning those cultures. It's embracing that, getting to know it, and along the way, trying to not look too touristy. Starfire is a total tourist. I think that's why this book feels like a vacation to me, because I can see myself having awkward moments if I went to any of those places, and I'm finding that part fun and genuine in this book with the character. And in many ways, it's making her more endearing to me than she even was in Red Hood and the Outlaws, and I love that book.
Yeah, it's funny you're talking, and I'm reminded of, which I may have shared on the podcast, I'm not sure, but one of my international incidences that I had when I was in Heathrow over in London, and I accidentally bumped into some guy, and he didn't speak English. I didn't speak his language. And just, I was like, oh, hey, sorry about, I'm trying to no problem. And I give the guy, thumbs up, saying, hey, everything's cool. Well, apparently in his culture, thumbs up is very similar to flipping the bird. Because everything went from being, hey, to, whoa, I got mad. I'm like, and I just took off and ran.
Is Atlee a variation on their Terra that they created?
Yeah. This is the Terra that was in the previous Power Girl story that Amanda Connor worked on.
Because I love the character. I mean, I think
This is the exact same character that came over. So when she first made the appearance, I was very happy because I liked the character back then. And to see her come in, and even in this issue, she's acknowledging her dealings with Power Girl. So this is that same character continuing on. She just happened to disappear and hang out. She's been hanging out at Key West when Power Girl went back to Earth 2. So, it's kind of like, oh, okay. This is where, she's been hanging out. And I like the explanation that they gave that she's just been doing her thing, trying to figure out what's going on. Occasionally she goes down and visits her family again, but she's staying up here trying to figure out what's going on in the surface world. And if she can, she helps out, but she's keeping a low key. And it's kind of interesting with a superhero wanting to keep that low key. And the fact that Key West is a great place for them. We talk about how Gotham and Metropolis are personalities in the story. Well, Key West is that same type of personality where people go to this, little island part of the country where it is Key West, man. It's relaxed. It's vacation. It's cool. It's chilling. And I like just seeing these heroes are just hanging out. And this is kind of, it makes it part of, another facet of the story is how and why people are so understanding with them. But as we're slowly seeing, there's going to get to a point when they're going to have an issue with the amount of violence, the amount of monsters that start appearing.
But see, and here's the thing with Atlee that I find interesting with Tara. She's a character that pretty much so came over from the previous universe untouched.
Yeah.
Because the Power Girl stories that are being referenced here are really the things that happened pre-New 52, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, this was all the not pre-New 52, it was...
Wasn't it? Power Girl wasn't the New 52 series.
I'm trying to think here. When did yeah, because that was pre-New 52, but when the New 52 came out, they still referenced that with her, didn't they, or no? No. Oh, I'm confusing myself now.
Hang on. So I just wanted to look it up. Yeah, because the Power Girl series, looking back to that, because there was the Tara miniseries, there was the Power Girl series, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti with Amanda Carr. This was back in 2010.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the trade paperback. That's when that was released, I should say, not the actual series itself. So, looking back on that, this is something that survived the New 52, which isn't so foreign. I mean, that a lot of things did survive. The Flashpoint, I guess, is really what I'm referring to in the start of the New 52. I'm glad to see this character, and I don't mind that. I was just trying to, when did she have that relationship with Power Girl? So I wonder if they're, referencing that as happening off-panel when World's Finest was going on then, right?
I'm assuming that's how they're going to, yeah. Because when you look at the short, when she's telling the short version, they show her and Power Girl hanging out. They don't go into many details of all their adventures, but they are showing, and that's the costume from the New 52. So it's kind of one of those tie-ins.
So basically what they're doing in that one page is giving you a context that she did have a relationship with Power Girl. This is who the character was. They're not referring to her as Tara. They're referring to her as Atlee, which, is her name, right. Which I don't mind. I actually quite like that. I'm glad the character's being brought in, and I actually like that they're referencing the relationship with Power Girl and putting it in some context. They're doing what a lot of New 52 did, where they're compressing certain things and saying, okay, these happened. And this is this character's history, and we like this part of the history, so we're going to use it and put it in here. It doesn't negate what happened in World's Finest with Power Girl, because she's basically referencing, hey, her life got really complicated and our relationship had to end. I came here. So it kind of sums up that we had this thing where I learned a lot from her, and that moved on. And none of that contradicts anything that I know about the character. It kind of makes sense with what was going on with Power Girl, so I like that. It's interesting how this character concept it was a very new and fresh concept pre the New 52, so you don't really need to freshen it up any. It was already there. Because, it's a new character, so I'm glad that she's here. But like you, I got confused. I'm like, wait, didn't that happen before? So...
and it's funny because since the previous version was written Justin Gray, Jimmy Palmiotti, and just, again, it's that similar style of... it's the similar storytelling style, not the same, but has that same type of, that they gave us with that Power Girl, where there was some really cool moments. They did have some humor moments to it, and it was, it's that same dynamic. It's that same comfortable dynamic that I always had from those stories. So this team up is another, team up that naturally I'm going to, gravitate to.
I like when Starfire gets to interact with people who are in similar situations to hers, and she can relate more. Because this is a line that makes me see that there's a lot more depth to her. Poor Atlee. I understand how she feels having decisions made for her by others. My life on Tamaran was heading in that very direction. Although being banished into slavery released me from those duties and forced me into other constraints. She's using, big words, and we're seeing a lot of depth to what she's doing and her empathizing with this character. A lot of times on the outward side, because of the fact that she's such a fish out of water, she doesn't appear always so smart. When you see the internal dialogue in this series, it shows that there's more to her than what we see on the outside going on inside. And I like that about this series. I'm finding there's a lot more depth to the character. We saw a lot of this being fleshed out in Red Hood and the Outlaws. I like that the solo series is doing it even more because we've got a stronger focus on her, more opportunities for internal dialogue, but we also see it externally. When she's with Atlee, there's a confidence there, and when there's a crisis going on, there's a confidence there and an intelligence there that's way different than we see when we see her living day-to-day life. I like the separation. I like seeing the hero being a one kind of person, the person trying to live quote-unquote normal, having a very different time with it. Because it's not as much, the Tamaranian warrior is much more used to dealing with a crisis. I like that. There's something to that. I think it really shows an understanding of the character and the direction of this book, and it's something 4 issues in, I'm really enjoying about this title.
And I do like the moments where we do see the warrior come out. Mm-hmm. We do see just that, that butt kicking that she is capable of. And with this, even this brief scene where when they first start talking about strategies on pounding on the big beastie, she's initially everyone's shooting at it and he's like, stop, you're increasing its mass. And even when Atlee says, hey, I'm going to throw him to you, hit him with everything you got. And she's like, wait, but that'll increase him. Like, yeah, I know. That's part of the plan. And I like just the fact that we do see her level of strategy playing out here, that she's not just going to blindly follow, but she recognizes that Atlee does have more knowledge and she's got a plan, like, okay, let's go with this. And even to the point when she's getting pulled underwater and she just unleashes full power, blows up the dude's hand. It's never an abuse of power, but a necessary, okay, time to unleash.
Starfire just called. She said that even she knows strategy is not a word, and she's not from here.
Come on, she would dig strategy. She would dig that word.
She's like, I don't understand why this person just speaks wrong.
But see, she would get me. She would understand once I'm coming from.
Wow. It takes an alien. One of the things I enjoy about this title is how seamlessly it shifts between action to aftermath. Like, she comes out of the water and then she starts seeking out her friends to see how they are and what's happened. But we also see the after effects, like cars that are destroyed, people trying to do what they can for damage control. Like, I love seeing the police on the scene where they're already doing things to try and help out. It just felt very real and very natural, like what you'd see in that place. And I like that she remarks, actually, on the recovery of this town, how it's able to adapt and overcome so easily because of the nature of the people there. It just, to me, it's turned Key West as a location into a living, breathing, thriving place in the DC universe. It's really being well handled here. I don't know what led them to make this choice for a location, but I do find the location, the unique nature of the character, is starting to make this book much more charming for me. It's the cast of characters that's drawing me back, and I'm finding it far more interesting. I love that she's got a supporting cast that I'm actually starting to really care about. A lot of times they become, when a situation gets silly, they become my reality check. Where it's not everybody's silly in this book. Sometimes things are just funny because of the fact that Starfire doesn't quite get it. Yeah. And I like that. But these are still serious characters who are reacting in a very natural way versus it being a total nonstop madcap silliness. And it's something I'm enjoying about the book. The humor works on a really great level because it never takes me out of the fact that this is really what would be happening if this situation was going on, and that part's fun for me.
Well, I do like these little human moments, like when they're hanging out at the pool. And one, the fact that the brother told her that, hey, you don't need a swimming suit, you can swim naked if you want, had me chuckling because I'm like, dude, good job. But when you see it, it opens initially, and it's, Starfire and Atlee talking about how long can she do that? Should we do? And we find out later that the sheriff's underwater, screaming, kicking, and punching, and just letting out just pure fury and anger and just frustration in this situation. It kind of had me like, you know what? I could see, she's got to unleash, she's got to unload, and it was kind of neat just, having this human moment within these couple panels and these couple pages. And again, bringing you closer to these characters, understanding who they are. And within all these funny moments, you get that great commentary about just the nature of Key West, the nature of how it's low key. Starfire is this ginger skinned supermodel that can fly. But in that part of the world, hey, everyone gets along. It's okay, whatever. She kind of blends into the background, and it kind of explains why she's able to get away with what she's able to, and why Atlee's going to be able to blend in, even though she, did massive displays of superhuman powers. Everybody was busy either running from the thing or noticing Starfire. They didn't notice her. They didn't notice that this mild-mannered waitress really has superhuman powers.
You were talking about that whole sequence where Stella flips out, and I loved that because it was very passionate and genuine. I'm inventing new words now, passionate.
Yes. Yeah.
But you see it on her face, but I also love the way, like, she's grabbing her hair and getting more and more frustrated, grabbing her head. Stop, just stop. But then Starfire, because she's genuinely kind, is like, I know what's needed here. We just need what's called a group hug. And it's clear she doesn't quite understand that, like, that isn't always the end-all cure-all, but she's like, I'm going to kill you both. That is not possible. Although you are a good hugger, you would have to have superhuman strength for that. She's right. This feels very nice. I could do this forever. It does. One of those things where it's a crazy situation kind of makes you go, all right, I give up. I got to walk away from the love fest right now. I just loved the natural feel. Like, I could see actresses playing out this whole scene, because that part's great. And I love the fact that there were people watching this in the background. You see a police officer in the background, another onlooker watching this whole thing going on, because who wouldn't, right?
Oh, God, yeah. And again, background artwork, just, the look on the guy's face watching, kind of like, huh? And then even switching over next page with the killer on the loose, showing that beach scene. That is just, a really cool looking, just, hey, relax, beach scene. And, you get that moment, of course, it's going to turn nasty for that guy, and things are going to go bad because, we don't know who this, new villain is, but he's going to end up playing a role in this. So it was kind of cool, just the blending from one little fun moment to introduction to the next killer, back to the blend cool, back to hit, and it just is a really great groove and flow through.
I like that this Soren character that we see, this killer that's going on, we lead to those sequences where he's doing some form of mind control. We flip back to them trying to live a normal life. Then we got a bounty hunter on the planet Tamaran going through. Now, is that her sister?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, especially because, he ends with the yes, your highness and all that. She's basically just, I don't know if she wants Star back or what's going on here. It's, she's like, I want her found, track her, but again, she's putting the no kill order, but come on. Something's going to go wrong here, and there's going to be some violence. There's going to be some fighting going on. And again, she's about to have two big bads hit her at once.
Now, what happens with Soren as Soren tries using his power on Corey? Because he's going to do that, right? Is that where this is going, do you think? I'm
assuming. And here's the question. Is she going to be able to resist it? Is it because... I'm trying to think here. Have we seen her have blocks to mental powers before or anything like that? We know physically she's powerful, but can she take a mental attack? Can she deal with that type of attacks on her? I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing kind of, again, who is he? What's he about? Is he another bounty hunter? Is there something else going on, or is this something completely different?
I don't know. I can't wait to see what happens with all of this. This is a great book. I'm really enjoying this book it's just a fun read. You know what I like about it? We're finding more of these fun reads where you don't have to feel bad for saying the book is fun. I think that part's great because for a while there, that used to be a diminishing term whenever you would use that with comics. And I like that we've got writers out there that are embracing the fun factor of a title without... Sometimes when you have a book that's fun, you You can make it overly silly, and you feel like, okay, if we're going to go fun with it, we can't tell stories that have murderers in them, and all the typical tenets that you normally have in a normal title. This book is doing all of those things, and because of the nature of the theme of the title and how it feels, it's going to feel differently than if this killer was doing this in a Grayson book, for example, like that. Because Grayson, as a spy, is going to handle all this very differently with a different tone. I like the tone. I really do. It's a fun book. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. Speaking of books that I want to talk about, can we talk about Teen Titans?
Oh, definitely. Our next discussion will be on Teen Titans number 11. The writer is Will Pfeiffer. Art by Ricken. Dan Brown on colors, John J. Hill letterers, Bengal on the cover, Aunt Lucia on the Bombshell variant cover, Paul Kaminsky is the assistant editor, Mike Cotton editor, Eddie Berganza group editor, and Superboy was created by Jerry Siegel by special arrangements with the Jerry Siegel family.
This book has been one that I really have been enjoying since its relaunch. I'm a Titans fan. You and I both share that in common. And I just love the concept. I love that it's teen characters in DC. One character I'm really beginning to dig? Raven. I hated the costume. It's one of the... if there's a New 52 costume that I hated, it's Raven's. I'm not in love with it now, but I love the character. And there's a distinction. I do wish she'd get a costume switch. I don't necessarily need it to be the Raven costume that we had pre-New 52, but there's something about it, it's just the costume doesn't work for me. But I like the character enough that doesn't matter. That's something that's been a shift. I'm like, okay, I'm getting into the character's story. She's become more interesting. I like that she's, before it was like she's constant evil, and that became very hard to take for a while. Now that the team's kind of coming together and we're seeing this, I do like the concept of two very different Titans teams coming out there. We got Manchester Black's team, which isn't really a Titans team anymore. It's, his own unique team that's out there, but it's comprised of a lot of our favorite Teen Titans. And we're seeing them really divided over Superboy more than anything else.
Yeah, it's, and I'm going to kind of agree with you on one point with the Raven costume, because I'm still getting adjusted to it. I think for me, it is, it's the headpiece. Because I always like Raven having the open face and you see who she is, because it allowed for some emotions, even though she was the character who kept her emotions in check. But she still you still got some really cool art moments. And this costume, it completely blocks everything out, and it's kind of, for me, it's kind of taking away from the character. And I think that's my issue with the costume. But just everything you talk about, just the development of the character, who she's become, going from the pure evil to who she is now, and just the evolution of this character has been a fun ride. And I like the split, but I want to see them come back together.
One of the things that I like about this book is that we have an opportunity for more characters, an exploration of more characters. And I don't know that they feel like they're doing anything wrong. Like we got on the other team, we got Wonder Girl leading it. She's a leader of the elite. We've got Trinity, this indigo lantern, cosmic psychotic who's in there. We finally got Guardian. I love having that character. And Power Girl, Kid Flash, the new Power Girl, I should say. Kid Flash is back, Clarion. It gives us a chance for some of these characters who like Clarion was in his own solo title. It didn't work out. I'm glad that the character didn't get dropped. The character's here. And these characters really believe that they're doing the right thing. And some of that is Manchester Black's manipulation. I'm glad that we got Superboy back, too, because I was loving the Superboy solo series. To have him back and having a role in the Teen Titans and it not dropping everything that came before is pretty critical to me. I can't wait to see how this storyline plays out. And there is this quest to try and save Superboy, and the Titans seem to be fighting insurmountable odds. And I do think this is a team that works better when it's like, how do they keep going with everything working against them? And yet they do. They become a team, they become a family. They're going together pretty quickly to do that. I like that we're getting certain characters, like we've got Chimera, we've got a shapeshifter in there, a Durlin, as a part of the team. They're characters that we've seen fleshed out in the New 52, character concepts, I should say, fleshed out in the New 52. We've seen a lot of Durlins. And we're not dropping these characters. We're putting them in these books, these concepts that we've been introducing, and trying to use them in unique ways. They've got a great character cast and lineup. Beast Boy, Bunker for both of us, I think, has become, I don't know about you, I love Bunker. Well, actually, you've mentioned many times that he's one of the characters that you've really enjoyed in Teen Titans.
Oh, God, yeah. Bunker is awesome. And he's one of those characters that throughout this whole process, when he was first introduced, you're like, okay, who's this guy? And then they took their time with building the character and getting you to know him and, really want him on the team. Right now, for me, he has to be on a Titans team.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different characters. Like him, Red Robin, musts on a Teen Titans team right now. For me, that's their must-haves. Superboy, agree with you completely. I'm glad he's back. I want to see Superboy get cleared. I want to see the Titans come back. We take some of the elite, figuring out that Manchester's manipulating them team up with the Teen Titans. We get this full team back. Now, I'm saying I want that, but I'm happy with the story I'm getting. I'm glad we're getting this build. I'm glad we're getting this, these initial introductions to what's going to happen. We first came on scene, he kind of was playing the game, and Robin immediately realized, hey, this is not good. So he's got his group going. Wonder Girl doesn't know exactly that she can't trust the guy, but eventually she's going to put two and two together. She's going to figure out the plan, and she's going to get the groove going. Now, part of me is still thinking in the back of my head, this is all a giant master plan by by the team, and that they're playing Manchester. Part of me wants to think that. I don't completely think that, but part of me would love to have it be at the last moment they flip the switch and say, guess what? We've been playing you the whole time, and it was really all a united front and not just not really two separate teams. That would be, for me, a great way to handle the story. But if they don't go that way, I'm still happy, because the stories we're getting with these two separate teams are really cool.
You know what? Here's where I don't think that's the case. Kid Flash has some serious issues with what happened, because he feels like his girlfriend was left because of the fact that in the future with him, he in many ways is, maybe irrationally so, because of his journey, feeling like he was abandoned, which wasn't the case at all. And that I think is a very real. In many ways, they're acting. Some of the members of the team are acting like teenagers, because you're not mature enough to be able to handle that emotionally.
Yeah.
When you're going through, and that's not a knock on all teenagers. I think that some teenagers, as you clearly see in Teen Titans, like look at Red Robin. I mean, very mature, and I do think that that's representative of teens are a very diverse crowd. We know growing up, some of our friends were very mature, some of them were very immature. So at times, we were all very mature and very immature and everything in between. And I think that's part of growing and growing up. I think there's adults that run through that right now, too. But I do think as you have more experiences, you kind of learn that. And I really like the journey of getting to know these characters as they grow, and how each of them, in many ways, helps the others to mature as they interact with each other and they grow. That's part of what happens in friendship groups, and that's probably why they're so loyal to each other. And I really quite like that. It kind of takes me back to a different time. I do feel like these characters are written and feel like genuine teams, and as diverse genuine teams really are.
Yeah, it is funny, because one of the scenes I really digged was when when the Titans are hanging out and they're recovering and they're basically licking their wounds. You see in the background, as Red Robin's laying out the plan and all that, you see in the background Raven's laying down, recovering, and Beast Boy is a puppy, just laying on the lap, kind of just being there, that comforting, energy that he is. And I love just that the visual element of that, especially because it was a background artwork. It was background art choice that they never really drew much attention to it, but it was a really cool just moment, because he wasn't, Beast Boy, he was this little puppy, just, being there to comfort her. And I thought that for me was a really cool choice.
I agree with you. Despero making an appearance here too, and being, because that's a character I normally associate with being this powerhouse, and in the New 52, we've seen him as being that with the Justice League, but historically it's always been the case. When he shows up on the scene, he's a big bad. So the fact that the Teen Titans have to deal with him especially without having that person on their team that can handle mind control, mind battles and things like that. I think is going to be something very interesting to see how that plays out with Despero. I do want to say one more thing about Bunker. I've mentioned this on previous episodes too. One of the things with Bunker early on, when the character was first introduced, I thought he was very generic. I was so wrong. I really have liked that he was a character that I had a certain assumptions with. I'm like, oh, he just, they didn't really put a lot of thought into this character. He's very wooden. I really enjoyed the relaunch because my linchpin was Red Robin when that title first kicked off, because we hadn't seen Tim Drake. Tim didn't have his own series, so he was my focal point. And Bunker was a character I had to get to know over time. I think you liked him right from the get-go. And if I'm incorrect, tell me.
No, I digged him right from the get-go because for me, he had that kind of that strut and that swagger. Because you think about when he first was introduced, he was the guy who was gung-ho to be the hero. And I thought that was kind of a neat, role, whereas everybody else was kind of like, hey, trying to figure out hanging back and I don't know about this. He was like, yeah, we're heroes. And dun, dun, dun. He had that style to him. And I just... It was that flamboyant character for me. I thought he was a great guy that, just from beginning, and then as just you learn more and more about him, you see him as, especially him and the Superboy interactions and Superboy's title, as well as in the Teen Titans title, was something that really, just showed you who the character and who the person is.
Yeah, and to me, what I've liked about him is the fact that he became this really accessible character that you were going on the beginning, middle, I don't want to say ending of the journey, but we've seen him from being just like this newbie to the superhero concept to being now, Bunker's a much more seasoned veteran. He's trying new and unique things with his powers. He's grown in the sense that a power that I thought was very generic before now is super cool. Like, I really love the character, and everything you're saying about him, I totally agree with. I totally see. I didn't see it at first, though. He was somebody that took me a while to get used to. Kind of like my Raven costume comment earlier. That was another one that I had to get used to in this book as they were introducing. And I'm so glad I did. I like new characters, and I like when they're introduced and introduced well. And I like that this character now has had some serious longevity that goes back to the beginnings of the New 52. And I do hope that this book is being tried by people, because I think Will Pfeiffer's doing a great job in writing this one. And these are characters that matter to me. The story matters, very similar to what you said. Like, I'm not letting it rush for this story to end, but I would eventually like to see the team get back together. Sure, I would. And however that goes. But I want to see this journey play out to its logical conclusion. I loved the infiltration of the prison.
Yeah, that, again, really neat explanation on, because that's always an issue I have whenever there's a story about some type of infiltration that, when you get discovered. Beast Boy gets discovered, turns into the giant bear, and then drops down and turns into a cockroach. And the guards just say, oh, it's these, the psychic attacks, because the mental dampeners on the different mental villains are weakened, and they're actually able to reach out. Completely explains why he saw this big, giant green bear that just suddenly disappears. Normally... I would call question, hey, the guards would hit the alarm, they'd sound all points, it would have completely alerted everybody. Right there within those couple panels, they explained it away, gave it a really good explanation as well.
Chimera was really great. I loved how she switched from using one set of powers to another. She's using powers of her teammate, so that way the teammate is effectively in two places at once, which is often hard to do. But then she switches to Livewire's powers on the fly. And, so being Bunker to Livewire really shows the diversity and interesting use of the character that I really enjoy.
Yeah. The one scene that kind of cracked me up is when she's jumping back and forth, and I start to see, you see her going boom, 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 and I love how the artwork is playing with her look. Because as you said, she's using the Bunker's powers. She's got a little bit of the Bunker look, and then when she shifts it into Livewire mode, she's kind of got that, that freaky look to her, but just... famous last words are constantly being played out in this comic book. And I think that has been kind of a traditional, vibe for me with some of this stuff where you see Bunker saying, hey, yeah, everything's going to be great. We're fine. We're sealed up here, safe and sound. And on the other side of the door, you have half a dozen supervillains about to kick in the door.
What do you think's going on with Superboy?
I don't know. That's something I've been trying to figure out. There's definitely some influence going on because when you look at him, with the red eyes and just everything kind of, a little bit freaky on him. I'm wondering if there's somebody mind control, if there's somebody controlling him, some manipulation out there.
Is there any possibilities on some level he's both Superboys?
He could be.
Is Despero just playing those strings?
Well, both Superboys could actually, be inside there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And Despero,
Yeah.
because Despero, you see him in the background behind Red Robin. Is he causing? What? Obviously, I think whatever's going on with Superboy, obviously Despero is causing. The question is it just Khan? Is it just our Superboy, or is it the other Superboy that we saw? I don't know. I can't wait to see how this storyline. Here's the thing, I'm intrigued by this story. I don't need it to go a certain way. I want to see what's going to happen next. That's something this book's doing really well. I'm really enjoying following along with some of my old favorites, but also the newer characters that we're developing, which I think is really important. If you're going to put new characters in a Teen Titans book besides our mainstays, you got to make them characters that matter to me. And Pfeiffer's doing a great job of that with this book. These characters all matter. They're all interesting to me, whether they're on the Elite or our team. The characters are on the Elite, I want to shake them and go, what are you doing? Not all of them, because some of them make sense to be on the Elite. But, some of our, especially Wonder Girls, I want to shake and go, what are you doing? And she'd probably have a really good argument for me, which is something that I really enjoy about this book, too, that this isn't something that she's just doing as a throwaway. She believes in this. So I want to follow what's going on here. I want to see what's going on more. I want to see what's going on with Superboy. I want to see, how much of this is Despero, how much of it is it something else on top of that. It's a fun ride, and it's something that I was very worried when the other series was ending, but quickly happy when I heard that the new one was beginning. Because Teen Titans is a very important title and a very important DC concept, and this is really a true book of just really interesting stories involving teen characters. And for that reason, very similar to Starfire, this book feels very different and fits really well into my reading library. Now, as a big Titans Together fan that you are, how do you rank this in relation to some of your favorite Titans books? Because you became, as we were doing the show, Titans was always consistently one of your favorite titles. Is it still in that place? Does this compare to what you read previously, or does it just feel new and it's hard to compare it?
Oh man, it definitely feels. I still get that same groove and vibe from this, and that's why I said where I do want to get the full band back together again. But these two separate teams have been telling me some great stories, and for me, I am anticipating that moment when the aha moment that some of these characters are going to have, and they're going to realize that Manchester is just that Black is just completely manipulated in the circumstances. He knew what what Tim was going to do, so he orchestrated the fact that all the jail cells got out. He, orchestrated everything to draw in Superboy, to do all this stuff. He's been playing a master manipulator, and eventually some of the members of his team are going to realize, hey, we can't trust this guy. And that's going to be their aha moment, because he's got that arrogance and that ego to him that he's not going to allow them to leave. So once they leave, it's going to be okay, you want to leave? Well, guess what? It's time for you to see the other side. And he's going to show them the darkness. And those are kind of stuff I'm looking forward to, just seeing those play out and seeing the Titans, as you said, the Titans together, that moment where this team is going to say, okay, here's the big bad, let's work together. And it's, so for me, this definitely has that same groove, that same vibe. I'm putting this right up there with all those really cool stories that I had before. And again, this is something that's been a nice slow build for me. When they first introduced, the team, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of good, but it didn't have that same type of Titans vibe to me. It didn't have that, that same classic Titans, story that, where we had some really cool Connor and Wonder Girl moments and Tim moments. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. We didn't kind of have that groove for me, but as it's going, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing those stories. I'm seeing this team gel, and they're gelling through adversity. They're gelling through storylines, and it's something that's building. I think we're going to get this story arc coming up. Within we're going to get some really epic Teen Titans stories once again.
The Titans that you're mentioning, one of the things I think that it was an advantage of that run, and you're talking about the run where we had Tim Drake on it, we had Kid Flash on it, which Bart, we had on it, Wonder Girl, we had Superboy, but we also had like Starfire and Beast Boy, and that one was, Starfire and Beast Boy and Cyborg. They were your veterans, and there was a legacy to the team. They were acting as the mentors of the team, and I think this book, one of the things that it didn't have was that legacy. Because Red Robin was really starting this team from ground zero. Now this book is starting to develop a sense of longevity. Because it's been around for the whole New 52. We're starting to get to know these characters and their setting in the New 52, which is something that I'm really starting to enjoy, a sense of, okay, this team's been around a while, and there's been a few iterations now, with different team members coming along. So I'm starting to get that sense, and I think that's where the stories are starting to not only feel more epic, but also feel like some of the members of this team are now the veterans that are teaching the newbies. And there's something to that. And it's actually true of the Elite, as well as it being true of the Teen Titans team. And I'm really enjoying that. Speaking of teens, let's talk We Are Robin, because there's been some really cool happenings in that book. And, we'll talk about We Are Robin number 3. And this was a suggestion you had, actually. You were talking about this during the week, and I'm so glad you had this one, because I wasn't thinking like there'd be a natural segue from Teen Titans into this, but there really is. And it's written by Lee Bermeo. The artist is Jorge Corona. Rob Haynes on the breakdowns, Trish Mulvihill on the colors, Jared Fletcher letters, Lee Bermeo cover, James Harvey variant cover, Rebecca Taylor is the associate editor, Mark Doyle is the editor. Batman, of course, created by Bob Kane. Man, am I loving this book. The concept and the fact that we have these kids who have been inspired by Batman and recent events to kind of take up arms and kind of help recover the city. A lot of these are kids who have lost loved ones or were directly affected by what happened with the Joker gas in Endgame. I like that Endgame had this huge resonating effect on Gotham that has changed the whole world. They feel like they are working somehow as... It kind of goes back to that Dark Knight Returns concept, where Batman started inspiring this gang to follow him, if that makes sense, in the post-apocalyptic world. In this case, these are kids who were inspired by Batman to start helping out and to start doing things. They become a network. This issue is great because not only does it reveal who the behind-the-scenes guy was, and we were right all along, and so many people were right all along, that's who it was, and it makes perfect sense, but it also is these kids' first interaction with the new Batman. And the contradiction of how the new Batman operates to... I don't know that Bruce would have been any different in his reaction to them, but them clearly seeing... wait, that isn't Batman, and that isn't how Batman behaves, and that wasn't what inspired them. And that part is something that I really enjoyed, along with the tragedy happening in this story. A lot happened, and this is a very big issue number 3. And I do encourage people, if you haven't been reading this series, or if maybe you only read the first issue and you're like, I don't know about this one, do yourself a favor and at least read issues 1, 2, and 3. I'll honestly say by issue 3, if this concept hasn't won you over, it's not for you, and I get it. But I do think in order to really understand the impact of this book and why you should read it and why it should matter, you have to get to issue 3. Because this one was the one for me, I'm like, okay, I've enjoyed the ride from issues 1 and 2 straight on through. Issue 3 is the one where, like, now I'm a believer. And I really feel like this is the issue that... I don't want to say it's a turning point. They had me anyway. But I do feel like this issue was really pivotal as far as where this book falls in my reading now. Like issue 4, I'm going to read right away because of how good issue 3 was.
Oh, God, yeah. I agree with you. And the thing I liked about the book, especially issue 3, is we're seeing there's even more there's more We Are Robins. There's more Robins out there, not just the ones that we've had. I thought that was a neat idea that, we've seen this little core group of Robins. We're like, okay, wait, no, there's more. There's all these other ones that are dealing with the riots, and it was basically a call to arms. They called for backup. They said, we got this rioting going on. So while the one team that we've been following are dealing with the bombs, we got other Robins up on the surface who are dealing with the riots, who are interacting with Batman. I like that, the fact that it's, this thing is even larger than we thought, and maybe even larger than Alfred thought when he first really started doing the concept.
Well, and some of the characters, just by their nature, like, the girl we see in the beginning, she isn't the most physically fit, but she's smart.
Yeah.
And she brings something different to the team. She acts like a coordinator, and, she's doing research for them and finding out things. I do like that not everyone has to be this huge physical athlete in order to be a part of this team. It's a movement. And like any movement, there's going to be people who have different roles and responsibilities. And often the team is trying to discover who has the best role, but who else is doing it is Alfred. Alfred's controlling it behind the scenes. So he's in his own way acting as I don't want to say puppet master because that's unfair. It doesn't really work that way. But he is acting like a facilitator. It's probably a much better word for what he does. He knows these guys are going to do this anyway. So behind the scenes, he's got an opportunity to say, instead of you guys going off on your own or going off into much smaller groups, what if you do work together? What if we do take advantage of all your skills? What if we really develop a Team Robin? Because we're developing a Team Robin, what if, because there's Team Robin, your chances of surviving all this are much higher? And I do think that's the motivating force behind this, and I really love the concept.
Yeah, there is definitely the safety in numbers, but it was kind of weird, with going through these different teams. And weird, I'm not weird bad, but it was like, for me, it was a really, different concept of getting my hands on. If they, it's kind of, and I think it's been something that's been going on with this when they first announced the concept, like, oh, okay, that should be kind of interesting, and just, there is a level of chaos that is coming out of this. And you think about like a regular movement, any other movement in the real world, you're going to have some of your structure, but you're going to have that chaos element to it. And I think the fact that the story is capturing this movement so well, in that we have, the organized structure, we have the nest throwing out to these guys, but then we have these other parts coming in. I love the riot sequences, that how they kept throwing those in, because again, it showed just that, the craziness that is going on, and with them just trying to, that team just trying to, get a hold of this, and on top of that, you got team, Alpha team trying to defuse the bombs. You've got the riot team trying to squelch just this nasty violence. And it was a really cool visual story being told, and as well as just, the written story that was getting laid out. This was, kind of had a poetic chaos going on. I thought that for me was a really great way to show a riot, but also to show the movement itself.
I agree with you. I think that part is particularly interesting when you start seeing the way that the movement part. I think when you say that, that's what I love about this book. It really is a movement. But I like that they aren't like, it's not like this weird cult or anything like that. They're being brought together in direct response to this tragedy. It really is citizens uniting to try and make, not only to survive, but to try and make this a better place, or at least take it back. Gotham's dark enough. And now their home's that much darker. And I like that each of them have a reason for being a part of the team. I like that the reasons are very different. I like that you're right. We're finding more and more people that are becoming I don't want to say becoming members, that were members that we didn't realize. And that kind of makes sense for this group, that we're going to see people kind of pop in and out, and people become focal points and people to drift into the background, because the missions are going to call for different people because of that. The bomb thing for me was, I think, the highlight of this book as well, because they wouldn't know how to defuse a bomb. And I liked that as a group, they were talking about what is the right thing to do. They were acting as a check and balance for each other. It made me like the team even more. No, that's not what he said. This is what you need to do. And they were looking over the wires for color scheme, for type of wire, and really making sure they didn't make a mistake along the way. It is very hard when you're doing something like that in that intense of a situation to not become impulsive. And we do see a point in time where impulsivity takes over and it's fatal. And I think that was a part of the story that I really, I don't want to, enjoyed is not the right word, but I admired the direction of this. because there is strength in numbers, and it only works if everybody listens to everybody else and values the role and the ability of every other person. I like that the ending, I could understand why the character did what he did. I like that he was trying to protect his teammates in what he did as well. I like that he thought he was going to survive by following the same rules, and it didn't work out for him. The sadness that Alfred experiences there, and that's where we get the main reveal that we all saw coming. I like the way that played out. I like that it was in that sad moment that we see all of those disguises that he had there, and we see his hand and the condition of his hand. Now we know the answer about the whatever hand he had at that point in time was certainly not the one that was, it must be some kind of fake prosthetic hand or something like that was going on. But I really like how all of this is playing out. This is a book that I hope people are reading, because I think it's a very important one. I'm excited for the upcoming crossover. I want to see Damien's reaction to them. I want to see Tim's reaction. I want to see Dick Grayson's reaction. This is going to play into Red Hood and the Outlaws. So all of the right players are going to be involved. This Batgirl's involved in this, if I remember correctly. So it is going to be kind of everybody who's anybody that was connected with Bruce is going to have a reaction to these particular characters and what they're doing. The Robin War storyline that's coming up, and I really can't wait for that, because this issue invested me in this title.
Yeah, and it was funny because there's one of the scenes that I didn't catch really until my art read through. And it's within the chaos of the riot that was going on. And I love on the one page, we got this, big guy just about to basically bash in one of the downed Robins. And on the one panel, you see kind of an image coming up on the backside, flip the page over, and then you see it's another Team Robin coming in for the rescue. And the way they did the, showing it, him just, it was kind of that, one person covering the other back, completely out of nowhere. It was a really cool, just again, we talk about the chaos. I talk about the chaos and just that, the riot going on, but seeing them covering each other's back. And then the cavalry showed up for the second wave. And it was just a really good, just way to show just this ongoing just build and build and build. And the part I really did was it's really had you going, yeah, and then Batman shows up and he's like scattered, and like you go, oh, but the whole time you're thinking very positive. I had this whole positive energy up until that point when the guy's getting ready to cut the wire, and I'm like, he's gonna make it. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm right along with him saying, cut it, and sure enough, we were both wrong. But the neat thing is, you look at that wire matched every description that they gave before. They said if it, with the, you pull the sheath back, if it was copper, leave it go. But if it was silver, double prong, cut it. That wire was a silver wire. So that actually was kind of, according to their previous directions, was the correct wire to cut. And I'm glad, that they showed that he didn't make a mistake. It just didn't work this time.
But he was there when the team members were saying, hey, we don't know. Can't be sure that both bombs are the same. The team was debating that, and they were actually throwing that on the table right away. That's the impulsive behavior. They should have checked in. It really is, you always talk about call for backup. These aren't experts.
No.
And, you always want to call and check in when you're not and double check. I really liked the reality of that situation, the dire nature of it. I want to go back to the first bomb. I love the reaction when, they were like, okay, we're blind on it. We're going off of blind faith here. This guy's protected us so far. And I think it's the Bat. They were convinced they were working with Batman. He's not going to fail us now. So they cut the wire, and the reaction afterwards is like, oh my gosh, this total relief. But you see in the background by the fact that somebody's throwing up that, like, the emotional intensity of that situation, they all knew if they were wrong, they would die. And I mean, that is something that's going to have a deep inside emotional impact. And that was something that I really liked. It added a lot more strength that when Batman shows up on the screen and he isn't what they expected, that adds more to it because they're like on blind faith that Batman was guiding them through this. Then when he's saying disperse and all that, like, huh? What do you mean? We're working for you.
Yeah, and it's funny because I know a couple of people who've done, the explosive ordnance disposal, and they worked, the bomb. I knew a guy who was, bomb disposal for police and feds and whatnot. And, the type of people who actually work on the bombs, who defuse the bombs, who do that, they've got your own special breed of person right there, because I love that emotion where they're sitting there and they're like, they said do this, right? Yeah, check, yeah. It's just that one wrong move, boom. And I like that emotion playing out, and just that drama, and just that, you would have that real gripping drama, especially, it's easy to say, oh yeah, that's cut that wire. But when you're sitting there staring at, 6 sticks of dynamite, and you're not 100% certain this is the one to cut, you're going to be questioned. You're going to be a little bit nervous. You're going to rethink and make sure you're cutting the right thing twice. And I like that.
You mock me, young master, yet another I could not bring home. The nest must go to them. Does that mean he's going to go to them? Because he's the nest.
He's got to let them know who he is and what's going on. And I don't think it's going to be him in disguise. I think they may get to meet Alfred Pennyworth.
We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Can he do that, though? Does that compromise? Here's the thing. He can't. No, I don't think he can. I'll tell you why. Because he's Bruce Wayne's butler, right? It compromises everything. You can't.
Yeah. Well, maybe actually, it says next month Batgirl, so maybe he's going to reach out to... Maybe this is the beginning of the Robin Wars, where he's reaching out to the members of the Bat family, saying these kids need more than just me guiding them. They need an infield guide.
Yeah.
Which that'll be interesting, because Barbara has been dealing with her father telling her to back down. Obviously, he doesn't know it's her, and but it's still Batman telling Barbara to back down. How is she going to react to these quote unquote civilians doing what they're doing? Is she going to accept and be more understanding, or is this going to be kind of like a divide amongst the Bat family?
I don't know.
Yeah, because we know they've already announced that Damian is not going to be happy with the We Are Robin movement.
Which he's usually understanding right from the get-go. So I'm shocked by that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that, I think that for me is going to be interesting, because he's that character that's usually like, hey, buck up, chum. Let's team up. This is what I do.
Red Hood's going to be the one I want to see, how Jason handles this.
Gotham Academy's a part of that, isn't it, too? Or am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong.
It may be, but I don't think so. I thought it was just
No, I think Gotham Academy's a part of that crossover. I might be wrong.
Because I thought it was just people who were either Batgirl and the Robins, their titles.
I don't know. Let's see. Robin War titles. DC ramps up the Robin War titles. Let's see. It's Robin War #1 by Tom King. Grayson #15. Detective Comics #47. We Are Robin #7. Robin, Son of Batman. Gotham Academy is going to be a part of this. Red Hood and Arsenal. Teen Titans. Yes, it's going to be the whole shebang is a part of this whole thing.
Oh, cool.
It actually looks like the only... Well, I mean, Batman doesn't look like it's a part of it, but also Gotham by Midnight isn't a part of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Can we talk about, speaking of Gotham Academy, can we talk about issue number 10 of that?
Yep. Our next discussion will be on Gotham Academy number 10, and let me just apologize up front for some name butchering that I'm going to do, because this has been a really absolutely wonderful title, and I do not want to insult anybody, but the writers are Becky Cloonan with Brendan Fletcher, art by Carl Kerschl with MSASSYK on the art. The colors are Sergei Lapointe with Mysik, MSASSYK for the colors. The letters are Marilyn Patrozzi, Patrizio, with Carl Kerschl and Mysik on the covers, with Rebecca Taylor as the editor and Mark Doyle as group editor. I really want to know how to pronounce that person's name, because I absolutely love this artwork. This is Gotham Academy has been one of those things where it really has surprised me. Every issue that comes out I forget how much I enjoy the title. And it's something that I was like, oh yeah, this is great. And just this look and this beauty behind this book has been something that has been, I was like, man, this is some cool stuff. And especially with this issue throwing out some Shakespeare, which I absolutely love. Macbeth, which is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. I'm like, oh man. So I've been kind of like in heaven with this title.
I have too. I think it's a really good title. I love the art style. You mentioned the art before too. What I really love about this one is it feels like a big adventure story. I like that there's kind of a mystical, magical feel to it, if that makes sense, in kind of a strange way. The art style kind of has an anime thing going on. It has a cartoon thing going on, but then there's a mature tone to it as well. It's kind of like a real mix of like sensibilities that I'm really enjoying and finding unique. Like, I'm not reading another DC title that has this kind of look to it. And it's a book that I find really refreshing. I love the characters. I love the theme. I love that Olive and Maps and the whole group, as it starts to branch out, I'm starting to really like the characters. I do like that it plays around with some of Gotham's conventions and shows how it would affect some of the kids. But imagine, if you wake up and find out, like, mom was a criminal. Olive has been one of these characters where there's been a cloud covering her throughout the series so far, and I really quite like that. I find the character fascinating because she's kind of eccentric. She's got some things going on that separate her from everyone else, and I'm really enjoying that. I do like that these characters feel very much their age, especially with Maps, with the jealousy as far as one character knows one thing about Olive that she doesn't know, so she naturally assumes this is some kind of statement on their friendship, which it was not the way it was when we were growing up. Like, your best friend was your best friend on Monday, then on Tuesday your best friend hated you because you were somehow friends with another person, and you can't be friends with another person if you've got a best friend. This is very true to what those relationships are like. And I do like the feel that these kids feel like kids to me. And this is, I taught third graders for years, and these kids feel like kids that would be in a school going through that. Yet there's times where they're really insightful. And I really like that they play out every aspect that I like about kids. This would be a terrific animated series. I would watch this and really love it. And I think it would be accessible to kids as well if you market it right, because it is very well written. While there's a maturity to the storylines and a depth to it, it is accessible, and I do think it is friendly to everybody in the way that it's going on. Yet it is reflecting what's currently going on in Gotham, and I really love that it encompasses all those things, and without dumbing it down.
Yeah,
and I do think it would do well as a series.
And it's funny. I like how you mentioned it's kind of got that that magical mystery tour type of vibe to it, because a lot of times with a magical title, they'll put a little grit to the artwork, and it fits wonderful. Like Constantine looks and feels wonderful for that title, but this book needs to have this cleaner lines, this cartoonish more, this animated, more style to it. It needs to have this because it's dealing with the children, dealing with this, this weird magical ghost and supernatural type of world. So I like the fact that this vibe, this look effects is, basically coming from the fact that it's the children looking at the world, not, the hardened, grizzled magician that we get in some of the other magical titles. And that's one of the reasons I really dig this look. It has that magical feel to it, but it doesn't have the dirt to it, because these kids are still looking at things, in a positive light. They're still there's still the wonder of the mystery. It's, kind of like I don't want to say the Scooby-Doo Club, because I don't want anyone thinking I'm throwing out lightly towards this, because I'm not, but it does have that mystery machine type of feel to it, where the team, again, over these 10 issues, the team has slowly been coming together, piecing together. It started off, Olive and Maps, and now the rest of the team is growing. Each one's got their own strength. Each one has their own role. And I want to see this continue. I want to see how these people are going to work together throughout the different mysteries. And I like every time they add a new character, the new character has a couple factions to them. Like, we've got the newest edition, Catherine, who, when she first came on the scene, I'm like, bingo, she's the big bad, right there. And I was just, completely new. She was our villain, but there's still the swerves that I didn't see coming. There's still the goodness to her that I completely didn't see that coming. I was just thinking, okay, that's the bad guy. So I love the fact that I'm still getting surprised, even though I was looking at her as the villain. I didn't completely see the level of who she was and why she was doing what she was doing.
Well, she's a victim in multiple ways. There's a couple things I really loved about Catherine, too. Everything you said, amen. I loved Mr. Trent's whole thing where he was very dismissive of her, and because she wasn't really a part of their friendship group, aside from knowing maps, they were kind of dismissive of the fact that he was really mean to her in what he did. He blew her off totally, which for somebody that age, a child that age, who just wanted to be an understudy and just wanted to learn, for him to do that was really wrong, but yet it happens. And I found myself angry with him, and I loved the way that felt natural. I'm like, oh, he's so, I want to take him aside and yell at him and shake him. And that was, I think you were meant to feel that way, to feel like she was, a victim at certain points in time in that. I also loved that in my second read through, you can see the sweat has the clay color.
Yeah. Again, completely did not see who she was going to be. Did not see the whole clay face. And I'm kicking myself for not thinking that. But again, it was a great swerve, a great just, and the whole time I'm looking at her as the big bad. I was thinking, okay, she's our main villain. So I was noticing her stuff, but I didn't notice the clay colored sweat and just everything. They're giving little clues as to who she was, even to the point where she first started saying her name. She didn't get the full last name. She just got the K-A-R part, Catherine Carr, and then she got interrupted because Olive showed up. And it was a great, just, a nice tease as to who she was. And, again, wonderful swerve. When you're looking at the person and you're thinking this is going to be your main bad, so you're focused on anytime she's in the scenes, I still didn't see the swerve coming. Outstanding.
Now, she's not Clayface. She was inside Clayface, right?
Or Clayface had consumed her or was covering or was controlling her or something. I'm not exactly sure how much of the nature was, because a lot of these scenes, this is Clayface in charge, not her. And she's kind of like along for the ride.
Yeah, because once they blast Clayface off of her with the water, that's really Catherine. She's not connected to him anymore at that point.
Right.
Right?
Correct. That's how I read this thing. So it was kind of like a, symbiotic type of sponging leech thing that he was doing on his own daughter.
Crazy, crazy stuff. Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens more with this book. I like the weird aspect of it. We've got a kid who's a man-bat. We've got werewolves. I like that part of this whole thing, and it's doing it really, really well. But in the meantime, there are kids who are a part of a play and excited to be playing roles as a part of a play, the dress up and all that aspect of it. And all that feels natural. There's relationships in there that feel very young and new, especially with the fact that Olive had a previous boyfriend and the boyfriend's a brother of Maps, but yet there's an awkward distance between them because that relationship ended and because of secrets and things like that are going on. I really love the way this book plays out. Hugo Strange is in the book, and you know right away not to trust him because we know his history, but there's elements of this story that just every time they keep revealing somebody new and some interesting new little tidbit of it that make me more and more fascinated by it. This is a book that gradually along the way I've grown to like more and more. It was everything that I would hope it would be, because the art style for me kind of hinted at it being this kind of book. It isn't until it plays out that you realize a lot of your assumptions are not enough. Like, this book has a lot more depth to it than I even realized in the characters. I want to know about her and her mom. I want to see what that relationship's like, because the kid's obviously going to be torn about that. I want to get angry at the mom. Or here's the thing. And I also want to be pleasantly surprised that some of my assumptions about the mom maybe aren't true, and maybe mom was a victim of some level in what she's going through. This book has a lot of twists and turns, and nothing is ever what you expect it to be.
Well, you think when Killer Croc was in the book, and he's talking about how her mom was really good to him.
Right.
And his mom helped him out. And, so there is a level of kindness to the mom. So we don't know the whole story behind the mom.
Yes.
Just like there's still some mysteries going on with Olive that we don't know everything about her. There's something different about her. And I don't know if it's a mystic power, if it's some type of thing that hasn't, it hasn't emerged yet, or there's something different about her that hasn't, her story is not completely told. And not just with her dealing with her mom. There's something else about her. And part of me wonders if in a way she is her mom somehow, if there's going to be some type of, kind of like, you think back to Fight Club, where, how it's Tyler Durden is actually the main character is really just the multiple factions of the main character. There's really not two people but one, and it's his different personalities. Part of me wonders if somehow the mom plays kind of like that type of role in her head. If really Olive is really the mom back and forth, and there's really never was the mom, or some type of weird kind of dual nature type thing going on. And that's why she sees the mom, and maybe the mom, because there's articles now like they're revealing maybe the mom's still alive, but I'm like, what if she's not actually alive? What if the mom isn't? What if she's always been that character that was the mom doing the stuff?
I don't know. That's going to be part of the fun of this series for me, is learning more about the mom, learning more about what that relationship's like, seeing what the mom's backstory is, because it's going to be complicated. And that's part of the fun of this, I think, is learning the complications of the series and what it really... I hope this book has... I've heard weird things about the sales numbers that, like... I guess I just naturally assume when you tag Gotham on something like that it means sales numbers. I don't know why. I usually think that that's one of the reasons why they head that route. But it's not always the case. And I think, Gotham by Midnight being canceled is a case in point on this one. And I just hope that this series has some legs to it, because there's a lot of possibilities, and these are characters whose journey... And that's what it really feels like, a journey to me. The magical part, I think, for me, is it does feel like a magical journey. I'm leery to say Harry Potter, because it does make it sound very cookie cutter, and I don't mean it that way, but it has elements of that. It has elements of The Hobbit. It has elements of Batman. It has elements of, so many books that I really enjoy. It has elements of the cartoon Recess, which I loved. It was a Disney cartoon that was on Saturday mornings. I loved the cartoon Recess. But when you put all those things together, that's where it becomes unique, and it's not cookie cutter. So it's fun. Would you watch this if they turned it into an animated?
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
But it had to be this writing. It had to be this writing.
Yes.
You couldn't water it down, because I think this would work really well as an animated series.
Yeah, I like the fact when Clayface and the Professor were going back and forth with the lines. And it was kind of like an acting off. The dueling actors going back and forth, and to the point when Clayface realized he lost, he's like, bam, he punches him. That was a really cool moment. But again, Olive jumps in with the save, and even that fills off because Clayface threw that little bit about her, about being crazy, about her mom being crazy. He's like, "Oh yeah, you want to dance?" And there was some really cool. Again, this character, there's so much more to her that we haven't seen yet.
Speaking of books that I'd love to talk about, can we talk about Detective Comics number 44? Because there's big events that happen in that one. We've had a lot of big events, and I don't want to ignore this book, because we talk so much about how great Batman is, and it is. Detective Comics is really just a very fun Batman read book, but I love Team Batman. I love the Gotham Central feel of it, and I really want to talk about what happened with the events here. Issue number 44, Brian Buccellato is the writer and colors. Fernando Blanco on art. Wes Abbott on letters. Francis Manapul on the cover. Cliff Chang on the Green Lantern 75th Anniversary variant cover. Rebecca Taylor, associate editor. Mark Doyle, editor. Batman, of course, created by Bob Kane. And this was the story that we all wanted to see play out. What happens with Yip? Nancy, and the relationship there. The jig's up. People know that she's a dirty cop. And Bullock's had such a rough ride all along that Bullock will protect his own. And even though he knew that she was dirty, And what they had to do, he wants to try and find this way to help her. She, of course, doesn't know how to get out of this, is going to Falcone. And we get to start seeing this all spiraling out, where she knows what she did was wrong. She wants to, on some level, make it right. And that part of the journey I'm finding fascinating. Like, you're angry with her, yet you admire certain things that she's doing. I get Bullock, because you want to stand by her friends through thick and thin, but yet she's dirty. So there's that part of you that gets angry with that, but then you remember that it's Gotham. The Montoya, and how Montoya has to react to all of this as she's finding out the bits and pieces as they go all the way through, and decisions she has to make there. And then along with this, we've got this great story about Batman fighting Mecha Joker with Joker's daughter on the inside. I mean, this book has a lot of story going on every issue. It never ignores Batman, but at the same time, always has this wonderful, rich story going on about the police officers in Gotham, which I really like to read. It's something very different when you get these kind of stories going on. And this book really has that gritty detective comics feel that I really love in some of my favorite runs of Detective Comics. Whether it's Batman focused or not, Detective Comics needs to be that gritty kind of ground level detective story. And it works in this so well. This book is really special to me. And this issue in particular was another home run with this series. Brian Buccellato is just becoming one of those writers that just gets it. And just does really, really great things. Did it with The Flash, has really continued to do it with Detective Comics. This is a great book.
Oh, my brother, testify. Man, I'm in complete agreement with you on this. I'm really glad that, because you threw out detective. Like, anytime you want to talk detective, I will talk detective, because there's so many, just as you're talking about, the big mecha giant Joker robot versus mecha Batman. In itself would be a great comic, but you have all these other stuff playing out. And one of the scenes I really digged was when, Yip is in the car with the Falcones, and she's like, "Hey, you're going to kill me, aren't you?" He's like, "No, we're not going to kill you." That would send the opposite message of what we are trying to convey. We want people who work with the Falcone family to know that they will be rewarded. And I love just how that fact, but then a little bit of hint as to what's going on in the story. And what about those who don't? Goodbye, detective. I love the fact that right there was a great clue as to what is the true nature of this story. What is the true threat? It's not, going after the politicians. It's not going after all the things in the big events. No, it's going after the cops who won't work with the Falcone family. I loved that play out, and I love the fact they gave us this clue right in the very beginning of the issue, but then it plays out, perfectly at the end, and that's when you realize, oh, Joker Robot was a distraction for everything. Outstanding. Once again, great swerve, great, police story, and completely agree with you on Bullock. He is awesome.
Yeah, it was so great. And I love that Jim Gordon was a part of it. I love that what they did there was they were protecting one of their own. In this world, you have to do that. And sometimes you've got to accept the shades of gray. It's not always black and white. There's shades of gray to this whole thing. It's why Gordon in the Batman title is reaching out to Batman and saying, sometimes I got to be able to operate off the grid. He gets that. It's got to be hard because they eventually want to build a Gotham where you don't have to do that. You can have black and white, but it isn't that world, and it isn't that simple. This book really explores that. I've got to commend the color work, the artwork, everything in this story. It's a beautiful book. We have changing art teams from time to time on this title, but it keeps the same visual style and tone to it, and I think it's really important for this title to have that. It's that mood. It really does feel like that film noir music should be playing in the background. It should have that kind of vibe to it. This is another one that I would love to see this play out as a live action series. I'd be happy to see this play out as an animated too. I kind of want to play this as a game too, because I want to drive around Gotham and be a part of all this. It's when you got games like GTA out there, you could take an engine like that and make this kind of story where you go on missions. And I would want to be Bullock and Montoya. As the characters I'd be as. I would like to be the police. I would love stuff going on like, Bullock and Montoya have to drive off a bridge into Mecha Batman. And the goal of the mission is somehow you've got to cover for Yip, going, into witness protection. And that part of the story, I thought that they really were going to kill Yip because that was where it was going in previous issues. I'm like, are they really doing this? Are they really okay with that? And why? Is this some kind of, we can't let one of our own do that? I was swerved for a bit. You might not have been. I was swerved for a bit until the issue kept going on. I'm like, wait, they can't be doing that. It's too soon. Where is this going? And I love that the issue was an emotional drama for me because I did at first think that, oh my God, did they really just do that?
See, I never thought they killed off Yip, but I didn't realize just what level of witness protection she was under. I just figured this was Harvey Bullock's witness protection. That's why she takes the money from the Falcones. He probably gave her a little bit more, and then she was going to just disappear. I didn't think it was going to be full on, actual witness protection and all that stuff, kind of like working with the feds and trying to get, stuff on Falcone and all that stuff. I wasn't imagining that full layout of it. I saw this as Bullock just protecting his own, protecting his partner and doing what needed. So I kind of like the fact that it wasn't just Bullock acting as the loose cannon, but it was more of organized. And I like the fact that he did trust Gordon with the truth, and Gordon trusted Montoya. You got to have that level of trust within the honest cops. They got to know each other, and they got to go, okay, I got your back on this play. And it was funny because you find out throughout at the end that Montoya knew the entire time what the plan was. And she was playing along with Bullock, not letting him know she knew about it until the very end. I thought that was kind of a neat little thing on the reread through where, when you go back through and she knows the truth.
One of the things that I really enjoyed was seeing Joker's daughter arrested, and they take the face off, and I really like that. Because why would you keep that on the Port of Prisoners to try and rehabilitate? So to keep that, I like that attention to detail, because they could have kept the face on, to let you know it was Joker's daughter. To me, it was far more important that they didn't do that because that added a reality to it. And I like those moments where I'm like, oh, there's a nice attention to detail, recognizing they wouldn't do that. And if they did, it would really make this kind of thing kind of groan and go, oh, that's pretty cartoony. It wasn't. To me, it was the psychoanalysis showed, first of all, seeing her regular face and how crazy she was. I thought the artwork of that was fantastic, but I loved the attention to detail that they took the face off. The Batman comments with Bullock and Gordon at the end, where Bullock's telling him to get rid of that mohawk cut.
Yeah.
But then also, I can't believe you're Batman. That stuff. It was really great because that would be a cool thing that two partners would talk about. Who saw this path coming? Their history really plays into this, and I liked that aspect of this story. This is just really a title that every month is one of my favorite titles coming out of DC. As much as I'm loving Batman, I'm loving this book just as much. And I love that it's not trying to be Batman. It's doing its own thing and reflecting what's going on with Batman. There's a key difference there, and it gives this book an identity that I loved about books like Batman and Robin and Detective Comics previously.
Yeah, and it's got that Gotham Central feel to it.
Yes.
And I don't want to say it's not that book but it has that focused on the street. The focus is Gotham is a main character. Throughout, anytime we always talk Batman, we always throw out the fact that Gotham City itself is a character. And in Detective Comics, you really see that and you really feel it. And I especially do like the fact that we do have such a high police focus on the Gotham PD, because things would be a little bit crazy, especially given that now Batman is one of them. Batman is now a cop. He's not just he's not a vigilante. He's, connected with them directly. So, when they first announced the new Batman, we all talked, okay, eventually Bruce Wayne will get it back. I'm very happy with the stories we're getting from this. Right now, I don't need Bruce Wayne coming back in the cowl, especially because we're getting the periodic appearance of Bruce Wayne in the other titles. You're seeing him interact with different people, and you kind of know he's still around, but he's completely different. And this is the Batman now. This is the Gotham. And, the next issue they talk about Justice League. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with Gordon reacting and dealing with the Justice League, because the Batman Superman issues were absolutely wonderful between him and Clark. I want to see him interact with the other members of the league.
Yeah, that's something that I'm really enjoying as well, seeing the interaction with the League. I'm glad that they're doing these things gradually. This is a big story, and it's a big status quo change, and it's something that I'm really enjoying about it is the fact that, you could jump all of that right away, and then what ends up happening is you rush through it, and you don't really give it a chance to ferment. I like the fact that we see Batman and Batman Superman. We're seeing that relationship gradually fleshed out. We're seeing Clark's reaction to what's going on with Bruce in the Batman title. We're seeing, there's a lot of things going on here. I want to see everyone's reaction to Bruce. We haven't seen that yet. Jim Gordon has so much stuff going on with him that, there's a lot of firsts to happen here. But then what's far more interesting then is not only the first, but then the second and the third and how those relationships grow. And at what point in time does he figure out how to interact with all of these people or not? I want to see that stuff play out naturally, how it should with the story. So there's a lot of story to be told here. I'm just as interested in this as I was when Dick Grayson was Batman. What's great about it is it's such a unique story because it's Jim Gordon and seeing him go through it and them actually giving it a chance to really be a thing. What if they stuck with this?
I'd be happy with it. I'm getting really cool stories, so I'm happy with this. And again, now I would like to see Bruce Wayne occasionally make appearances, and even if it's just showing Bruce Wayne has a good life, I'd be happy with that because I do like the fact that every time we've seen Bruce, we see him at peace. He's not being tormented by the fact that as a small child he witnessed his parents being horrifically murdered. He's at peace with the universe and he's helping, people and he's helping the underprivileged and he's doing some great stuff. And I like the fact that, Bruce Wayne got his happy ending. Bruce Wayne's got it, and I hope everything is on the surface of what it appears. I hope this isn't a giant swerve and his current girlfriend isn't some master criminal or member of the League of Assassins, or I'm hoping it's not something horrific going to happen to him but I kind of have this in the back of my head that something bad is going to happen to her, and that's going to kind of snap something in Bruce, and we may get Batman back. But I don't want that to happen. I want Bruce to just have a nice, life, and I want to see Damian meet this Bruce Wayne. I want to see what happens in that meeting, if it happens at all. Because you never know, when Damian learns what's going on with his father, he may say, "That's not my father. My father is Batman. That man is not my father. He is Bruce Wayne." And he may not even meet up with Bruce. Bruce may never learn that Damian is his kid. You never know how Damian's going to react to anything. And there's so many, and Dick Grayson. I so want to see Dick Grayson, meet Bruce. There's so many different stuff that I want to see happen that I'm happy with keeping Jim Gordon as, Mecha Batman, and maybe separate him and actually turn him more vigilante and less corporate guy, but he's still a cop at heart. So there's so many different stuff they can do with this. This is a solid long-term story they got going.
Yeah, it is. I'm happy to read it as long as they're going on with it because you know what it is? You've got top tier writers addressing this. So it's a story set in a world that I love, involving characters that I love. Nobody's off the table. So everything you laid out right there, we're still getting stories with my favorite characters. Their status quo has changed, but they're all still there. That's what's working for me. It's interesting. And that's why I think I'm so hey, I'm comfortable for them keeping this going indefinitely just because it's really good material. And I think if you start watering it down, you have good writers on it, and you don't have a direction for it, it stinks. But this is a big direction. It's something that's really interesting and involves all of my favorites. And that's the bold move of this whole thing is they haven't taken anybody off the table to do it. Do I eventually want to see Bruce back? Yeah, the geeky fanboy in me who loves Bruce Wayne as Batman, I want to see Batman be Batman again. And I want to see him remember who he was. And that might be... am I going to be mad if they don't do that? No. I'm loving this story as it is, but there is that part of me that's a Bruce loyalist that wants to see him eventually back.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I'll stay with this ride for years if I need to in order to get to that point because it's fun. It's good fun stuff. We got a listener voicemail. Let's go chat about that.
There it is. going into that tunnel.
John, g'day Jim. This is Brett from Australia calling once again. I know you're doing Grayson and Omega Men, the most recent issues, on the next show, so I just wanted to give you my 2 cents worth because they're my favourite comics that DC are doing at the moment. I just love them so much. Grayson number 11 was incredible. Man, Tom King sure knows how to plot a story and to give you the twists and turns so that you're as unsure as the characters are as to exactly what's going on. We get to see that the villain is Tiger's partner, Agent 8, I believe she is. But then later Tiger says, no, I saw Maxwell Lord, head of Checkmate, so was it Maxwell Lord? No, at the end we get to see that it really was his partner and that his partner is working with Dr. Nets to bring down Spiral and that she's Helena's sister, Dr. Nets? What? Man, he just layers on twist after twist and I just love it. Of course, the best part of Grayson is always, and especially in this issue, the banter that Dick has when he's fighting people. The whole thing with Wonder Woman and this Clayface and Wonder Woman was just fantastic. And the initial line where Dick says, this is the first time I've seen myself from that angle. Don't know what all the fuss is about. Just, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Because, Dick Grayson was the character who started the whole banter during fights thing way back when he was introduced as Robin. So it's really nice to see that continuity is flowing through. And even though this is a different Dick Grayson in a different situation, the character is the same. Sorry, he's not a different Dick Grayson. He's just the same guy in a different situation. Really, really enjoying that comic. Omega Men. Oh, talk about twists and turns. My goodness. So Kyle is being played by the princess who is in fact working with the Omega Men, but is she maybe looking for a triple, double, twisty cross? And she is going to try to get out of the Omega Men and is just playing them. Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. And I love the fact that this book hasn't given us clear-cut heroes and villains, but people who are making decisions about how they're going to act in order to bring about what they see as the greater good. I find that absolutely intriguing, and it's such a great book. And having Kyle as well, I really liked the way that we're getting to see Kyle as a character now, and the whole, hey, I was just an ordinary bloke and I wasn't special, and unlike everybody else, I wasn't chosen. But it's interesting. Kyle is one of the few that has wielded such massive cosmic power, first as Ion, when he had the Green Lantern powers of the entire Corps, essentially. Then he could access it as Ion. And hey, man, the guy's been a White Lantern. So come on, don't be so down on yourself, Kyle. You may not have been chosen for a particular reason, but hey, you most certainly were the right guy there at the right time, as you've proven time and time again. Well, now that I've spoken to a comic character and given him a pep talk, I'll leave you guys to get on with your day. Thanks once again for your show. It's still my go-to comic podcast. I love everything you guys do, and I'm looking forward to listening to you again for years and years to come. Sean, Jim, thank you so much, fellas, and I hope you're both having a really good time. Thanks. Bye, guys.
First, I'm actually going to start with his comments at the end first. It's funny. You and I haven't actually even talked about this. I'm starting a second master's soon because I'm in an administrative role in my school district, but I'm not an administrator, which is very common when you're a tech director. I mean, that's okay, but there's reasons for me to go for my actual administrative certificate, so I've got to start a second master's. And I was thinking about, how can I keep this podcast going? Because I'm going to start a tech podcast, too, on the side, it won't be released as often as we do Raging Bullets, but I want to do one relating to my job, which would be completely independent of this. I'm like, how am I going to keep Raging Bullets going with doing that? It is stuff like that. First of all, I love talking about the material. I love talking with you about it. So this is like therapy for me. So it's fun to do this. But it's also, we've made a lot of friends over the years. Some of them are silent friends that just listen to the show and just enjoy doing that, and we never hear from them at all. Maybe people like Brett, and regular callers that call into the show. We've had guests that have been on the show. I couldn't imagine not doing this. So it's funny when I'm like, how am I going to do this? I'm like, I don't know, find a way. and it's really kind of the reality of it. I love doing this podcast because here's one of the things that's changed over the years, the 10 years that we've been doing it. I think once we figured out what our voice was and how we're going to do it, sitting down and recording's effortless. And let me explain that. There's no put on to this. Like, you and I just sit down and chat and we share honest feelings about these books. There's prep work that goes in before the episodes as far as making sure that I'm read up on what I've read. You do the same thing. I take some notes down as far as things I want to discuss on the show. I do that for every episode. So, there is prep work behind the scenes and quite a bit of it that goes on. Then there's the post-production of the podcast as well. But as far as the actual sitting down and doing this part is effortless in the sense that I know who I am. I'm comfortable being me on this show. You're comfortable being you. And it is due to, I think, just, first of all, the friendship that you and I have, but also the friendship that we've developed with the audience and the people who listen and do check in regularly or casually, depending where you are, that just keeps me coming back for more. We're 445 shows in, and like when Brett calls, I smile. And it doesn't matter how much time's been between his phone calls. We've got a regular group of listeners that call in that I really enjoy. I love when new people step up and call in. I love that there's a silent group that's just kind of like, you know what, guys, I just like listening, and it's my thing. I love the people that participate in the Facebook group. I like that our shows are digested in just a wide variety of ways, whether it's casually or regularly. There's something about that. So I really appreciate the people. And that's one of the reasons why I want to keep doing this, and it's worth doing. Because of that. I also love comments. These are books that you and I talked about so recently on the show, and I wanted to hear Brett's take on it because it's a little different than ours. He's got the same enthusiasm for it, but they're very unique to Brett. And this is what I love about voicemails. We kind of digested our own and shared our own feeling on both of these books. Omega Men was bittersweet, though, because I was thinking partway through it, I'm like, I don't know what they could have done for that book to get the word out more. I don't know if putting Green Lantern and the Omega Men on it would have helped. To me, it would have. Here's the thing. Here's why they couldn't do it. I think it would have ruined the unique nature of the title. Calling it the Omega Men was the route to go. The art styling, the writing of it's what makes it special. I was like grinning from ear to ear with every one of Brett's comments. And I love this book because of it. And I'm not taking anything away from his comments on Grayson. I adore Grayson. Grayson's kind of a no-brainer to me. Omega Men's that unique new title. And I loved hearing him talk about his passions for Grayson and what he's digging about that and the great reveals we've had with that. Omega Men has that same kind of wow factor that Grayson has. Both books they really bring to the forefront what I'm loving about DC's initiatives right now. And there's all kinds of negative comments that I hear from people out there about DC doing this, DC doing that. To me, some of the brave approaches that DC's taking on some of their titles, like taking a risk on an Omega Men, taking a risk on what they did with Grayson, taking a risk on what they're currently doing in Batman, the various Bat titles that are coming out of all that. There's a lot of great things going on. And sure, there's some experiments that have failed, and I don't consider Omega Men a failed experiment. I consider Omega Men a great experience that I got to join in. Do I wish that experience was longer? Yeah. But you know what? I'm going to salivate and enjoy every last issue of this book. Am I going to write a letter about Omega Men? Yeah. I want DC to know that first of all, I'm going to tell them how much I appreciate the fact that they took a chance on this book. I'm going to tell them how much I really hope they give it a second chance and give this book a shot for an extension of some sort. Whether they go to miniseries on it or extend the actual series, I would love to see them do more with these characters. I think they deserve it. And it's a title that I care about enough. But this is one I care about enough to write a letter about. But I love hearing other people talk about this book. I mean, it's really something that's special about it. And I'm glad Brett called in about it. Please do, for any of our listeners out there, please do this. Call in on titles that you're enjoying. It doesn't have to be ones we've talked about on the show. It can be whatever you want to talk about. Call in about some of the things that are going on with DC right now. How do you feel about the cancellations? You know, are there titles you're going to miss outside of it? Do you think they should have canceled some of them? What are your thoughts right now? What would you like to see DC doing at the moment? Those are the things I'm interested in. So, anything you want to add?
Actually, no, you covered everything nicely. I'm just sitting back there going, yeah, I'm just hanging back and enjoying the show.
I do want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We truly do enjoy having you part of the show, so anything you want to comment on or chat about, please feel free to agree or disagree with anything that we say or have your own spin on it. We'd love to hear from you. This is the interactive part of the show that I really like. And Brett, as always, it's great to hear from you, and I hope we get some more voicemails next week.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
Want to remind everyone about our website, ragingbullets.com. That's where you're going to find out about what's going on with the show, when the show is going to be released. It also feeds into Twitter. So if you're a Twitter fan, make sure to follow us on Twitter and find out your information that way. We do have a Facebook fan page where we post the episodes when they go up. We have an amazing Facebook group committee. I'm very tongue-tied at the moment. Let's just go with it. We have an amazing, let's try this again, Facebook group community. Wonderful people over there, and clearly they're more well-spoken than I am. That's what happens when you try recording this after hours of podcasting. The community is really made up of wonderful people. We share that community with Infinite Comics, and it's made up of just people who are like-minded to all of us. You know, we're fans of geek culture. The news updates that are put up there constantly. Honestly, I, a lot of times now, get my news from our Facebook group. Because the group is so cool and likes to post topics that are interesting to them. I love hearing and reading I love reading what people have to say. I hear lots of voices in my head. Most of the time it's my own. Most of the time it's my own because I got to listen back to the show when I edit it. But I do really love the community, and I want to thank everyone who participates there. I love when people share their thoughts. A lot of times it drives my own thinking, keeps me up to date on what's going on. My week gets busy, and I really rely on the community a lot for everything they do. So I just want to give a special shout out to all the people there. Thank you so much. I don't always get to respond to every post there. I do read quite a bit of what's going on there, and sometimes it's a quick hit and run, just because I want to check in and see what people are talking about and what they're interested in. And I really appreciate the enthusiasm of the people there. I feel like you're my friends, and it really is that type of class community. So if you're not a part of that group, I encourage you to really try and check it out. Remember that if you're one of those like, I don't like getting all the emails and stuff like that, you can change your settings at any point in time and determine what information you get from those groups. So I encourage you to do that. If that's shied you away from Facebook groups, don't let that shy you away from being a part of this one, because the people there are really special, and I really want to shout them out. We are on Google+. You can also find us with personal Facebook pages. I've got a PlayStation Network account that I'd love to connect with everybody on. So please feel free to check us out. It's always in the show notes or in the Contact Us section on our website, how to get connected to all those things. But we love connecting with you. Mr. Seguin, we are sponsored by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. What's going on at DCBS? You were shouting it out at the beginning?
Oh, we have the Dark Knight 3 Master Race, issue number 1, 50% off, DCBS price $2.99. But they also have an oversized collector's edition hardcover, also 50% off, $6.49. But wait, there is still more. The new 4-issue limited series Batman Europa, once again, 50% off, only $2.49.
Jim, did you say 50% off?
50% off. Woohoo!
Over at InStockTrades.com, speaking of 50% off, you can get the Swamp Thing Deluxe hardcover, 50% off, only $24.99. Latest releases, I shouted out that new Teen Titans trade paperback volume 3, 45% off, only $10.99. I do want to shout out a few more releases. There's the Batman hardcover volume 7 Endgame. This is the Endgame collection. 45% off, only $13.74 for the hardcover of Endgame. Big, impactful story. Batman Noir Hush hardcover, 45% off, only $21.99. These noir stories are really, really great because they actually take the artwork to it and showcase it in a unique light. So if you haven't checked these out yet, make sure to check out this particular collection of the story. And that's $21.99 at 45% off for those noir hardcovers. I love the fact that they're playing around with just different delivery methods of these stories, so there's something available for everybody. It's really, really good stuff. So that's dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com, who support a wide variety of podcasts. Please consider supporting them. Jim, our next episode, we've had some talk about some things we'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk the Green Books, so let's talk Green Lantern. Especially now in light of some of our most recent news. So we'll talk Green Lantern, we'll talk Lost Army, and we'll talk Sinestro and get kind of caught up on what's been going on in those particular books. And then let's leave the rest of the slots open for some of our favorite new releases, and just kind of talk during the week about which ones we want to talk about. So we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.